Hi, hello, how are you? I'm great, thank you. Welcome to the Sweat presented by DraftKings, everybody. I am Emerson Latzia, so we're about to do that thing you like for the next hour or so. NBA, NFL, NHL, NASCAR, college football picks are on the menu, DFS and sportsbook plays. We're hitting it all, baby. But first things first, after nearly 7 months, 2,430 regular season games, 34 postseason duels, the 2022 Major League Baseball season all comes down to this unlikely World Series pairing. The Phillies and Astros, game one tonight. Let's preview it with DraftKings contributor Gary and Thorne and RotoWire's Eric Halterman. Phillies fan Eric Halterman, who said before this show he's feeling feelings, he's feeling emotion for the first time in forever. Congratulations. Are you nervous? Like, seriously, as a fan, how are you feeling right now? Because you seem on edge.
Yeah, I was just talking before the show about how when you talk about baseball for a living, you think your fandom's dulled a little bit. You got to be this objective observer guy all the time. But man, I am realizing that that's not as true as I thought it was over the course of this month. It's been a nervous month, but it's about as much fun as I've had watching baseball in my life. So give me just 4 more games, 4 more Phillies wins. That's all I need. We don't need 7.
All right.
Just give me 4.
Okay. All right, babe. Make it real quick and dirty. How about giving you Nola in the captain spot tonight in DFS in game one, or Verlander on the other side? What's your strategy tonight there, Eric?
Yeah, for these showdown slates, you have to go with the pitcher of the team you think is going to win. And with the pitchers being priced so similarly, I think that's going to send a lot of people to Verlander. And if you think the Astros are going to win, and it's a little bit more likely than not, I think that they do, he's a perfectly fine choice. I think for big contests that pay out to about half the pool, I think you want to go with one pitcher in the captain spot and the other in your regular lineup, because just look at how many points these guys score per game. Bryce Harper's having an outstanding postseason. He's reached 20 fantasy points just once in that postseason, and both Verlander and Nola average more than 20. So you got to go with the pitcher of the team that you want to build your lineup around. By the price, I think Verlander is a slightly better deal, but if you think everybody's could be on him, go build a Phillies base lineup. But whatever you do, I think make the pitcher the captain.
Gabriel, do you agree with that? Verlander, a slightly better deal tonight?
Yeah, I would probably echo pretty much everything Eric just said. Both these guys are fantastic. Nola's numbers on the road this season, I know the last couple of years there'd been a little bit of a narrative that he pitched better in Philadelphia than anywhere else. Truth is, he's just good anywhere he pitches. But his numbers away from Philly this season are phenomenal. His strikeout to walk ratio was 10.3. His FIP is 2.10. Like, he's been amazing. And kind of funny, like, I don't think anyone was looking at this series as a World Series preview when it was happening, but the final series of the season for both of these teams was each other. It was Phillies Astros, and Nola went out and pitched a gem against this Astros lineup. So he's proven he can do it against a lineup this talented. I would probably lean Verlander just because I think there's more strikeouts in that Phillies lineup than there is in the Astros lineup, but that's really the only differentiation. I'll also say, if you do want to take a stab with someone who isn't a pitcher, which I wouldn't really advise, but if that's your cup of tea and you want to try and save some money, of the elite bats in this game, I think Rhys Hoskins is probably the most, he's got the price that's the most ill-advised. It just doesn't seem right. I don't know why he's this cheap compared to everyone else, considering he's going to be batting second. And if you look at Verlander, not like there's a weakness, quote unquote, but he's much better against left-handed batters than he is against right-handed batters. He has reverse splits. So I think Hoskins is in a really nice spot, just given the matchup and given, again, the fact his price is probably a couple $100 off.
And, Nola starting tonight, he's doing that for several reasons. One of them is also to give Zach Wheeler an extra day of rest, which I just came across these numbers here, guys. Both Phillies top starters have pitched much better with an extra day of rest, as you would suspect, with most starters in Major League Baseball. But for example, Wheeler, 2.02 ERA this season with at least one extra day compared to a 3.66 ERA on normal rest. Nola, 2.72 ERA compared to a 3.84 on normal rest. Would you look at one of them for a player prop in game one, Garion, or who are you looking at for one?
You know what? I do like Nola's outs recorded prop. It's not my favorite prop because the lines moved pretty significantly. It was minus 120 yesterday. It's now minus 135 to the over.
Okay.
I think in general, outs recorded props have been lower in the playoffs, which makes sense. Shorter hooks, shorter leashes. In theory, too, you look at the way this series is set up, 4 off days. There's a scheduled off day on Sunday. Like, there's no reason these managers in a vacuum should want to be protective of their bullpen. Like, if you get in a situation where you think a reliever's in a good spot, use them, because there's been more than enough off days to cover yourself. However, the Phillies, as we've talked about time and time again, if they're going to win this series, it's on the back of Nola. It's on the back of Wheeler. Like, I think Rob Thompson is going to be very willing to let Aaron Nola work deep into this game because that's the best case scenario for the Phillies. So I like over 16.5 outs recorded. It's something he did in 24 of his final 29 starts during the regular season. He's Aaron Nola. He's very good. I would say my favorite player prop on the board is under half a hit for Kyle Schwarber. And I think Schwarber in general is just someone who, this is a pretty enticing prop at plus money because he doesn't get a lot of hits. When he does get a hit, they're majestic.
Oh my
this
God,
is someone
they
who
go to
hit
the moon
218 during the regular season. He's hitting 200 in the playoffs. He walks a ton. He strikes out a ton. He's your classic 3 true outcome player. And like I said, Justin Verlander has not just been better against left-handed bats over the course of 2022. He has been the best pitcher in baseball at retiring, best starter in baseball at retiring left-handed batters. 70 pitchers faced at least 250 left-handed batters this season. The 235 expected WOBA that Verlander got in those situations was the lowest in all of baseball. Left-handed batters barely hit above 160 off of Justin Verlander this season. So Schwarber, he's hitting leadoff. Interesting to note, there are really no high leverage left-handed arms in the Astros bullpen, which does play into Schwarber's advantage. But at the end of the day, plus money for Schwarber, who could go a week without a hit sometimes. I think that's a pretty good deal.
I mean, he powered the Phillies here, Eric, like through October with these, as Garion described it, majestic Schwar bombs. But on the flip side, you could also go with like a Justin Verlander strikeout total here, which I know could pain you a little bit being a Phillies guy.
Yeah, there is a Justin Verlander prop that I think is my favorite of the player props today, and that's actually Verlander to get a win. Because look at this. The Astros are favored quite clearly, but look at the odds to get the win. It's plus 165 for Nola, plus 215 for Verlander. So clearly what we're looking at here is if the Phillies win, it's because Nola wins. And if the Astros win, it's not necessarily on the back of Verlander. And I get that. Yeah, there's a path to the Astros coming back on these shaky relievers late in that Philadelphia pen. But man, there's also a path where Justin Verlander is just Justin Verlander and they win this thing 2-0, 2-1. I think the gap between Verlander's plus 215 to get a win and the Astros overall money line is huge, to the point that if I was going to bet the Astros, I'd just do it this way. I don't like the payout on the money line at all. I don't think any playoff game really should have odds that are this skewed when a guy as good as Nola is on the mound on the other side. But man, plus 215 for the ace and the Cy Young winner on the World Series favorite just to win game 1, that's a pretty good deal.
Dude, 42 career plate appearance against Verlander. This current Phillies roster possesses a 35.7% strikeout rate. Like the one time he faced him this year, he struck out 10. He was literally almost perfect.
To be fair, you could probably do that with like any combination of hitters on the planet. Like,
listen, I'm just pointing out numbers,
struck out 30% of the time against Justin Verlander.
Hey, Garion, numbers don't lie there. All right, pal. All right, let's go quick on this one here, guys. What's the best game bet for tonight, Garion?
I would just say the under. Like, I'm way more into the props world on this particular game, but if you do want to just, bet something your grandma understands, the under at plus money is a pretty good way to go. Like, these are just 2 dominant pitchers. We've seen time and time again in these playoffs that home runs are really the only way anyone's scoring. And yes, Verlander has been prone to give up a couple home runs every now and again, but I just think banking on these 2 amazing starters, these 2 elite starters to go deep, not allow many runs. And look, most of the Astros games have hit the under so far in their playoff run, despite them winning. So I would just look for that trend to continue.
Best game bet, Easy E.
I think it's just Phillies plus 140. I think I've been doing this throughout the playoffs. When you get a big payout on one side, both these teams are really good. They both deserve to be here. Yes, the Astros were much better during the regular season, but that gap shrinks if you look at just the last 4 months of the year after the Phillies changed managers. And with the way the Phillies are playing now, I don't think any game between these two should be more than 55-45 in the Astros' favor, plus 140 as a very good deal for a team with Nola on the mound, who had a higher strikeout rate than Justin Verlander, a lower walk rate, and a higher ground ball rate. So the gap between these two just isn't as large as plus 140 suggests. I'd take them, I think, at plus 130. Plus 120 is about where this gets tough. So I like the plus 140 here on the underdogs.
All right, Eric, let's talk series prop that you are eyeing. I know you mentioned and you would love it to see this, your Phillies sweep the Astros. Hey, listen. Houston Astros and Phillies under 4.5 games, series total games, plus 550 on that right now, Eric.
Yeah, you get some interestingly large payouts on these one-sided series results. Maybe as a sort of pessimistically inclined Phillies fan, what I'm looking at here is the Astros to win this one by a lopsided way, so that if my Phillies lose, at least I end up somewhat happy. I think if the Astros do win and you want to bet on them, you have to get greedy and look for these big payouts. So say the series handicap, Astros minus 1.5 games or even minus 2.5 games. If I'm looking to bet the Astros, I think I am looking in this area to try to find some payout better than their overall series payout. Because again, I just don't think a team should be as favored as they are, even though I think at even money they should win. So look here at, say, Astros minus 2.5, Astros minus 1.5. They win games 3 and 4 against the shaky Philly starters. They win with Verlander. I mean, this thing could be over quickly.
All right. So Gary, and yesterday we were talking to Bukes in studio. He said this series is going 7. What do you think?
I mean, that'd be fun. As someone who doesn't really have a horse in the race, like music to my ears to hear Eric talk about hedging your happiness. This is someone who bet on the Warriors against the Raptors in Game 4, Game 5, and Game 6 of that particular NBA Finals for the exact same reason. I'm going to go with a player prop for the series. I just think Bregman's home run total, not that I was expecting it to be 1.5, like that's sort of Alvarez and Harper territory. I understand that, but it's only minus 115 for him to hit a home run in this series. And if it goes 7, that's incredible value, because when you start breaking this down, if it goes 7 games, that means you're going to see Ranger Suarez twice. And Alex Bregman is someone who has incredible career numbers against left-handed pitching. Maybe you see Bailey Falter start Game 4. I don't know if it's going to be him or Syndergaard. It's probably not going to matter all that much. You're not going to see them that long. But like, that's when Brad Hand starts working his way into the mix. Like, there's just a couple more left-handed options on the Phillies side than there is the Astros side. And I like that for Bregman. Also, Astros have home field advantage in this series. The Crawford boxes are going to help every single right-handed hitter. They really, really help Alex Bregman. He hit 16 of his 23 home runs at Minute Maid Park this season. He's got a 178 WRC plus in Houston. He really loves hitting in that ballpark. So I will take Alex Bregman, who is, by the way, baseball's all-time leader in playoff home runs for a third baseman. I will take him to get 1 in this series.
All right, Gare Bear, give me a favorite for MVP. Who do you like right now? Let's keep in mind, who won it last year? Was it Soler? And he was a guy who wasn't even among the favorites. Hell, he wasn't even on the Braves until mid-season last year.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy how this stuff can happen. I would say everything I just said about Bregman does make me like him at 12-1.
Okay.
I would also say Aaron Nola at 20-1 seems way off, because if you start playing out the scenarios in your head where the Phillies win this series, like let's say it goes 7. It doesn't have to go 7, but let's say it goes 7 and they win in Game 7. He's pitched Game 1. He's probably pitched Game 5. And there's a pretty good chance he appeared out of the bullpen, sort of like Bumgarner style for the Giants, and pitched in some capacity in Game 7. And if that's happened and he's pitched well in those first 2 games, like Bryce Harper would have had to have hit like 3 home runs. Someone would have had to do something incredible offensively the rest of the way to take this out of Nola's hands. I really think there's a real chance we see him in 3 games in this series. So for that reason, 20-1, those are pretty enticing odds.
Eric, often the World Series MVP is a player you would not expect. Who would you back right now?
Yeah, I agree. You got to go down the board a bit. I think the last time the team's true star hitter won it was David Ortiz, 2013. And the pitchers don't win it often too, just 3 of the last 18. So I think if I'm expecting the Phillies to win, I go with somebody like Rhys Hoskins plus 1,800. I like that a little bit more than Bryce Harper. Obviously, Harper should have better odds, but I think the respective payouts between the two isn't accurate here. Hoskins has 5 homers already this postseason. His batting average is quite low, 182. But if the singles start falling and he gets a key game-winning homer, I think it's him. If I was going with the Astros, it would be Bregman. I think for all the reasons Gary was talking about before with the previous question. Same logic. I don't think you want the absolute biggest hitter or the star pitcher. But Bregman, seeing the ball so well right now, just 2 strikeouts all postseason. So I think those 2 are my targets, depending on which team I'd be betting on here.
All right, guys, series money line. Who is winning it all, Eric? Are you going to be betting here with your heart or your head?
I think it's both. I hope
Okay.
it's both. It's Phillies. Phillies plus 160. If you're giving me straight up on the money line, it's Phillies all day there. Teams just aren't that favored to win the World Series. We saw it with this exact Astros team. They lost to a Nationals team that was not really noticeably better than this Phillies team 3 years ago. They lost to an Atlanta team last year. Astros were clear favorites in those. No team, though, should be as favored as they are here. I'll go Phillies plus 160 with the way they've been playing in the postseason, especially. They have the formula. They have the aces at the top. They just have to go 3-1 with Wheeler and Nola, and they have the lineup to steal a win in one of the other 3 games. They don't have much in the bullpen, but they can close down the final 1 or 2 innings. It's not going to be easy. I think plus 120, though, is a much fairer price. They are underdogs, but they're not plus 160 underdogs.
All right, Gary, and you're nodding your head in agreement?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you just ask me straight up, who do I think is going to win the World Series? It's the Astros. But if you're asking me to bet it, you have to take the plus money. Like Eric outlined this perfectly. Baseball is just a sport of randomness. It's not quite hockey, but it's really just hard to take a favorite this overwhelming in a 7-game series where, again, yeah, the Phillies only won 89 games this season. I understand that. And that's going to be the stat people throw around if they do end up winning this thing. This is an incredibly talented team. There is name recognition and star power across this 26-man roster. It would not shock me in the slightest if the Phillies won this series. They could win it 4-1. I'd be like, yeah, that's baseball, Susan. So I just think if you're betting it, always take the plus money on these things.
All right, gentlemen. Good stuff. Eric, woosah, my friend. Enjoy the weekend. Looking forward to seeing what you look like on Monday when we talk to you about it. And everybody hang out because earlier this week, so yesterday, in fact, week 8 started. The Bucks losing again to the Ravens. I don't know why Tom Brady came back. But anywho, I checked with Mike Golick Sr. to get his take on some of the other big storylines from this weekend. All right, Mike, one of these storylines I want to talk to you about, it's kind of hard to unpack, like the Matt Ryan benching in Indianapolis. So Sam Ellinger is the guy now? Like, what are the chances that you think this gamble pays off here, dude?
So, listen, this stunned me. And there's one reason this happened, and it wasn't the injury, because they were going to bench Matt Ryan anyway. And this is really surprising to me because I picked them to win the division. I thought Matt Ryan was an upgrade from Carson Wentz. But it's turnovers. When you throw 9 interceptions and fumble, I think you have 12 total turnovers. You just can't do it. You can't win in this league. They're not a great team, so you don't help yourself at all when you're turning the ball over. So you have to stop the bleeding. And listen, they're in a bad division where they're 3-3-1 and they're in second place in the division. The only problem is in the division they're 1-3-1. I mean, you know, they haven't done well in their division, but they're still right there. So they're looking for that spark. And one of the sparks is don't turn the friggin' ball over. Sam Ellinger, listen, I covered him in college. You know, he was a good quarterback, but we have no idea what it's going to be like for him in the NFL or what the learning curve is going to be. And guarantee you there's going to be a learning curve, but I'm sure the Colts are hoping it doesn't involve as many turnovers as it did with Matt Ryan.
Yeah, it just feels like right now, like the GM and head coach Frank Reich, like we know that they're feeling some heat right now, Mike, but now they can kind of blame this season's failures on Ryan.
Well, you know, listen, you can never pick one thing, but one of the things in Matt Ryan is turning the ball over too much. Now, not all 9 interceptions were his fault, but still, you have to make changes where you deem it necessary. When you're playing like they are, there's multiple things that could go wrong, but you do see one of the things that you can possibly change to stop some of the bleeding, and the bleeding, I mean, is turnover. So you give this a go. The bottom line is Matt Ryan's still on the roster, so if Sam Ellinger doesn't produce or isn't able to do anything, then you can go back to Matt Ryan. I know they have Foles, I believe, as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you know, I wouldn't doubt if Matt Ryan, if Ellinger struggles, that Ryan is back on the field.
And we know Foles' successful history there with Reich. And speaking of success, dude, PJ Walker and the Panthers upsetting the Bucs last week, Mike. And right now, he's the man under center, and he's going to be, says Steve Wilkes, even with Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold close to returning here from ankle injuries. Like, they're going to stick with the former XFL quarterback right now. So for a team that hasn't had much to cheer about this season, how do you feel about this move? How do you think the guys in the locker room feel about this move?
So when I was in Philadelphia and Randall Cunningham got hurt one year and Jim McMahon came in and played, and then Randall got healthy, but Jim was playing pretty well. I remember all the local media came down to our end of the defensive end and say, what do you guys think about if they go back to Randall or stay with Jim? And I said, I don't care. Whoever puts the ball in the end zone and helps us win, that's the quarterback as far as I'm concerned. Steve Wilkes, he has no, he didn't bring in Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield. He was a coordinator. He wasn't a coach. He's the interim head coach right now. His only thought process is win. We won with P.J. Walker. P.J. Walker's going to stay in the game. You know, I don't have anything with the other two quarterbacks. If P.J. Walker struggles, I'll bring in another guy. That's all Steve Wilkes is concerned about. He's not concerned about developing any other quarterback. He's concerned about wins, whether he's going to get that job or not as the head coach overall, or if he's auditioning to maybe be a head coach somewhere else. But right now, you stick with the guy that gets you the wins and is playing well. I have no problem with that at all, and players won't either.
Yeah, well, it's almost, I'm glad you brought that up because I want to go to New England here next. So there's Bailey Zappi, who it looked like stole Mac Jones' starting job there for a sec, Mike. But then Belichick saying today it's going to be Mac Jones against the Jets on Sunday. But what kind of issues do you think like this quarterback carousel could cause in the locker room? Because I know you just mentioned your experience here, but you have guys in New England who are like, I've been caught off guard by it. Like, this is not a great situation.
So that's the one thing I will say. I don't care when a head coach at a press conference, I don't care if he tells me nothing. He doesn't owe me, you, the media, or the fans anything that he's talking about in the locker room. Never thought he did, and I never think they will. But you got to make sure everybody's on the same page in the locker room. And when I hear there were players that weren't sure what was going on, that's where I have a little bit of an issue. Now, is it the end of the world? No. But that's the place you want everybody in communication, everybody on the same page, and more to the offense than the defense, because the offense has to deal with different quarterbacks, different cadence, wide receivers dealing with different throws from the different quarterbacks. So the one thing I'll say, if you know there's a possibility both will play and both are getting reps in practice, then that's fine. At least you know that's happening. But you're right. When you hear reports that guys weren't sure who was going to play, I'm not a fan of that, especially on the offensive side. You need to know kind of what's going on and who's going to be in your huddle. And it looks like while Mac Jones is going to be the guy, he obviously has the ability to get yanked when he's not playing well. And listen, if Zappi didn't struggle in the second half, he may be the quarterback right now. He leads them to 2 scores, but then he struggled in the second half, in the last game. So that's probably why he's back on the bench again. But I think now the offensive players at least know that there's a good chance you'll see both quarterbacks in a game.
Yeah, for sure. And like Belichick even said, like, following that loss to the Bears, Mike, he's like, well, both quarterbacks were going to play either way. And like Mac Jones was actually going to go back in if we weren't losing as bad as we were. Let's go elsewhere around week 8, though, because the 49ers are
All right, come on down, everybody. Time for a fun little game of NFL high or low. I'll be your award-winning host. Our contestants this morning will be DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich and Jeffrey Ulrich. Congrats on making it this far, you two. So, gentlemen, this is a fact here. Scoring across the league this season, way down. Through 7 weeks of play, 43.4 is the average of your total points per game. That marks the lowest output the NFL has seen since 2010. Tom Brady and Giselle were still married in 2010. So it's not a shocker that 5 totals here, guys, are under 41 this weekend, including between the Jags, America/London's team, and the Broncos, which is going down across the pond. Jeff, 39.5, too high or too low?
Are the Broncos even Denver's team anymore? They're like a
No,
suburb.
hell no,
Like
dude.
they might become like the suburb. You know, they might have to rename them like the Ridgeland Broncos or something. Anyways, I'm going over on this one. I am definitely going over here. We got Russ. He's been doing jumping jacks on the flight over ever since. So he's pumped up for this one. I mean, like we got a non-jet lag Russell Wilson. We got 2 jet lag defenses. In all seriousness, I do like the over here. This is a very low total. Travis Etienne's going to be able to move the ball against the Denver rush defense. It's probably the weakest part of their defense. I think Russ being healthy definitely gives Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton a boost at the very least. We've seen Jacksonville. What have we seen from them? They stiffen up at the start of the games and they wilt at the end of the games, unfortunately. I think that eventually this total will get over. I think that, again, I mean, you've got defenses across the other side of the ball. These London games just tend to get a little bit weird at the end as well with a little bit of extra scoring. I think you'll see this one go over.
Okay. Do you agree with that, Pierce? I think we see some pretty low scores,
not.
right?
No, I'm not rooting for
Not
the
a believer
Broncos.
in the high, the mile high aesthetics, or calisthenics. Sorry.
Yeah, this is crazy talk once again. Look, I've been right about Russell Wilson since last season. Jeff's been wrong about Russell Wilson since forever, and he's not healthy. He was limited in practice. He has a torn hamstring. He's not good to go. He has lingering shoulder issues. He had hand issues all last season. When are we going to learn? This guy is washed up. His career is over. His career is over like Reed Fowler. I ended his career with my Seattle hot takes. Haven't seen him on here in a while. That's because I dusted him, just like I dusted Russ Wilson. Wilson, Broncos, no good. They've already lost 2 running backs. Their offense cannot get the ball in the end zone, just a 25% red zone rate. They're facing a halfway decent defense in the Jaguars. Nothing to write home about, but they'll look like gods against this Denver offense that's terrible. And I disagree. The Denver defense is very solid. I like what Jacksonville has offensively. They're inconsistent, but that Denver defense is just going to hold them in check. I don't see a lot of points coming here.
All right. Well, Jacksonville 4-4 over there across the pond and everybody. And yes, do not forget to pour one out for sweet Reed T. Fowler. All right. Don't look now or do, but the Jets are 5-2 Super Bowl contenders, according to people who are absolutely clueless. They're 2.5-point home underdogs against the Pats, who will have Mac Jones under center, which will probably play in the favor of New York. Is that spread too high or too low, Pierce?
It's probably too low. Or actually probably too high.
Okay.
The Jets, I mean, look, we can keep dismissing them, and every week we're like, oh, well, they just beat this team. That team's not very good. That's every week we say that. And if the Jets win against the Patriots, you know what we're going to say next week? Oh, well, it's because the Patriots aren't very good. Yeah. We're never giving these guys credit. Robert Saleh's got tons of receipts. My name is on plenty of those receipts. I think I might have learned my lesson by now. Belichick definitely, though, has their receipt, if anything. He's been able to own the Jets during his career. And even the story of Belichick's always, well, he's going to take out their number one option. And that's how he controls teams. What is the Jets' number one option? How does Belichick even game plan? Are they going to shut down Zach Wilson? Is that the number one theme here? I don't know.
James Robinson now.
That great. It's crazy. Jets have a good defense. Maybe they just let Wilson scramble, kind of like what we saw from Justin Fields, and that opens things up. I'm on the Jets side here. I think I've learned my lesson, and the Patriots are trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, Jeff, Jets riding a 4-game cover streak entering this matchup, but 1-2 ATS at home as an underdog this season.
Yeah, I would side that this spread is too high as well. I kind of like the Patriots here a little bit, but I don't really want to take them to cover any points. I mean, I think this should be a pick 'em. So I would say this is too high as well. And Pierce is right. The Jets, they have injury issues. Breece Hall being out, Breece Hall's kind of saved them in a lot of ways the last few games. Just the big play here or there, it's switched the field for them. It's given their defense a chance to dominate. It worries me a little bit that now they might have to rely on Zach Wilson, but he is mobile back there. I mean, at the very least, Zach Wilson, gets himself out of trouble by just doing the twirly bird down behind the pocket and just getting rid of the ball. So he's been okay in that regard. He hasn't been moving the ball much, but they still have Michael Carter. They still have some wide receivers. And I think that the other factor here is just, the Patriots, what do we really have to worry about on them? I mean, the Jets have the better defense here. They've got legit playmakers here. This could just be a really ugly 17-14, 14-13 kind of game. And I really like the under here, by the way. 40.5 points is way too high. I think it's going to be an ugly game, but I think that, in an ugly game with two good defenses probably going to dominate, 3 points is too much. The spread's too high.
All right, Steelers versus the Eagles. These two teams were once mashed up into the Steagles, but on opposite sides of the Keystone State here, dudes. Pittsburgh and Philly are going in very different directions this season. Is the double digit spread of 10.5 too high or too low, Jeff?
Doing the double Dutch here on a Friday morning. Most people are going to look at this and say, oh, Mike Tomlin, you get 10 points, you got to take the points. No, the spread is too low. Eagles are going to destroy the Steelers. Did you watch the Miami game? That score should have been about 30-10. Miami wasn't converting. They're allowing a few big plays to George Pickens late in the game to make it close. The Eagles corners are not going to do that. They're not going to allow any big plays. They just brought in a legit pass rusher. They're going to hammer Kenny Pickett into next week. And Jalen Hurts is going to move the ball because the Steelers secondary is terrible. I expect A.J. Brown to post about 100 yards and a touchdown here. Philly is going to cover this. They're just going to embarrass the Steelers. This is a huge mismatch. The Steelers, the only reason this spread isn't up to 14 or something is because Miami made them look semi-competent at the end of that game. Philly is not going to do that. They're at home here. They're well rested. There's no injury issues. AJ Brown's just going to put one on. This one's too low. It should be bigger.
All right, Pierce, the only thing I'll say to that is the Eagles have historically struggled coming off the bye. So in their last 4 games following their off week, they're 0-3-1 ATS.
Get out of here with this junk.
I'm telling you, dude.
Get
off me.
But this is a completely different Eagles team. This feels like, unlike any Eagles team, even the Super Bowl winning Eagles team does not seem as competent or as credible as the Eagles team that we are seeing this season. This is a Super Bowl favorite team, and they're maybe not getting enough respect. And at the same time, Pittsburgh is getting way too much respect for beating Tampa. They're not a good team. Pittsburgh couldn't score against Miami, and Miami had half of their secondary was missing in that game, and yet Pittsburgh still couldn't do anything offensively because they haven't been able to do anything offensively all season long. Now they got to face one of the best defenses. This thing is way too low. At some point, we need to start having a serious conversation about the undefeated season for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Wow.
Look at the schedule. It's a cakewalk. There's just one game that you might worry about on Christmas Eve at Dallas. Other than that, Philly, as long as they just don't have a really dud of a game, are going to cruise through basically every game. And they'll probably be double-digit favorites often.
Mercury Morris is going, like, he's going to be popping up here soon, Pierce. Like, defending his Dolphins from 72. Jeff, here, this will make you feel better too, bud. Eagles are perfect 3-0 ATS at home this season.
There we go. Perfect.
There we go. There you go.
That to support me.
Yeah. Happy to help. I don't know if there's really any stats that can support the Packers in this just monstrosity of an offense that we've seen this year. They're on a collision course with their 4th straight loss because on Sunday night, they're facing the beefy behemoth known as the Bills Mafia, Jeff Ulrich. This one could get ugly unless you are who expects Green Bay to rise up from the ashes all of a sudden. Their team total is 17.5. Too high or too low for the Pack, Jeff?
It's too low. I've seen this. I've been around the block, Emerson. I've seen this story too much. You put Aaron Rodgers in a situation where everyone is against him, where everyone's against his team, where his team is done, and he finds a way. It's just like Jeff Goldblum said from
what happened last week when his team was done.
Aaron Rodgers finds a way. They're going to do it again. They're going to rise up here. I'm not going to go out and predict an upset here because the Bills probably Josh Allen will save this in the end. But I do think Green Bay comes out, and I think they punch Buffalo in the face to start this game. And I think this game ends up close. And I think the Packers will go over the 17.5. They still have weapons there. They do. They just haven't been able to get it together. Romeo Doubs is a good player. He could be a factor. But the running backs, Aaron Jones is still going to be able to move the ball. Lazard is still there. Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. He's the 2-time rating MVP. This isn't a guy going through a divorce or anything. This is just a team that's just struggled to get it together. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to rise up, and I do think that the Packers offense will go over this team total at the very least. And I think that the double-digit number is too big as well.
Pierce, what's wrong with him?
Too much ayahuasca, I suppose. Rodgers is fine. Rodgers is not the problem. He will be okay. but the Buffalo Bills are really good. I don't know. Last time I checked, the defense, the offense, really no weaknesses here. Playing at home on Sunday night against a Packers team that's absolutely falling apart. They've got good running backs, but they never run the ball. During the losing streak, 17.3 rush attempts per game. That's the lowest in the league. And guess what? If you fall behind early, which they're probably going to do, they're going to have to abandon the run. And at that point, Rodgers has to throw to his receivers that he hates. The receivers that he's saying, hey, we need to cut these guys reps. They're making too many mental mistakes. And the guy he's mainly pointing the finger at is Romeo Doubs. Doubs dropped 3 passes last week, ran the wrong way on a wide open route. Even if Doubs gets on the field, Rodgers is not going to pass him the ball. Who else do they have? I mean, Torrey,
he
Amari
hates
Rodgers.
his team. He hates his teammates.
There's no one to pass the ball to. You can't play. And the offensive line's a mess as well. The Packers are in bad shape. I agree that at some point they will turn things around and maybe slide into the playoffs. But it ain't happening this week, not against Buffalo.
Okay, so I think we're done there, but I have producer Drew who says, Jeff, make sure to congratulate you for your Isaiah Likely call last night. 6 catches, 77 yards, his first career touchdown.
Yeah, got to project those Mark Andrews in-game injuries,
Oh,
so got
my
lucky
God.
there, but
Dude.
Likely was the most likely guy to take over once Andrews went down.
That does suck for Andrews though, because he started off hot. It was like 3 catches, 33 yards, and he banged up his shoulder. Whatever the hell happened to Rashad Bateman? Like, why was he even playing? Like, that pisses me off. Completely effed my fantasy team and everyone else out there. Anywho.
A lot of tears flowing from the Ravens players last night.
Can you name any other Minnesota player in the NFL besides Bateman ever?
No, that's it, dude.
Think about it.
We got to wrap, Pierce. We got to wrap. I got producer Drew's yelling at me in Slack right now because we also have NBA price check coming up with Jeff Pratt. After we take one more look at this Sunday night extravaganza with Jesse and Steve. I like chicken. I like fried chicken.
Jesse Cofield here along with DraftKings contributor Steve Buchanan. Welcome to this week's Showdown Spotlight presented by KFC. Sunday night sees the struggling Packers heading to Buffalo to take on the class of the NFL in the Bills. Who thought we'd be saying that when it comes to these two teams? But here we are. So, Steve, Aaron Rodgers in this offense has struggled mightily this season. So will you be looking to the Bills side for your KFC bucket pick?
Yeah, there's so many ways you can go on this Bills offense here. Just go with the guy who's one of the safest plays here with Stephon Diggs. In coverage, he's going to see a lot of quarterback Eric Stokes, who's been targeted against 23 times, has allowed 20 receptions, over 13 yards per reception. And when Josh Allen needs to go deep downfield, it's usually Diggs that he goes to. He has over 9 targets of 20 yards or more. They need to go deep downfield. Diggs is going to be the guy. So that's my bucket pick.
All right, who is the player that you're stacking with your bucket pick Diggs?
Yeah, we're going to be going with a group of players with the Bills defense in this one. They're going to be able to get a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers, who's having a plethora of issues with his offense as is. But you look at this Bills defense, 18 sacks already on the season, averaging over 15 pressures per game. It's bad enough that Rodgers has no one to throw to, but now he's going to be under pressure. This could mean a lot of points for the Bills defense in this game.
All right, thank you, Steve, and thank you guys for watching this week's Showdown Spotlight presented by Kentucky Fried Chicken. Finally, spicy buffalo and cool creamy ranch have come together. Introducing KFC's new Buffalo Ranch Sauce, the perfect blend that turns every bite into the perfect bite. Only at KFC. That's finger licking good.
Okay, one of my former favorite individuals is here, Jeff Pratt. I typically listen to a lot of his NBA advice, but he's been bullying me on Twitter lately.
Let me just say, Emerson, the bullying's been going both ways, first of all. I'm not going to sit here and let you slander me live.
No, dude, I have receipts, bro.
Most expensive guard on tonight's slate, but he's outproducing quite a few of these guys who are ahead of him. and has scored 50 plus DK fantasy points in 2 of those last 3. And his usage rate was over 32% in both of those games. So he's getting more and more involved in the Timberwolves offense as they kind of figure out what they're doing with their system now that Rudy Gobert is a part of the equation. He's also facing the Lakers tonight. And don't be fooled by LA's defensive rating. This team is still clearly a massive train wreck. There's a lot to like from a DFS perspective about Edwards tonight.
Okay, give me someone who has a lot to like, who plays guard, and will cost you under $5,000 on DraftKings.
Let it be known that I do think both Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White are solid value plays tonight. But Emerson doesn't like, you see his reaction right there. Emerson doesn't like when I talk about Celtics players. So I'll pick someone else tonight, Emerson.
You're Kaufman Jr.
Just to be nice to you, Emerson, you wanted me to be nice to you. I'm being nice to you right now. So I'm picking someone who's not a Celtic. I'm going to dip below 4K with this pick, not even 5K, and highlight DeAnthony Melton, who has really found his rhythm over the last 2 games for Philly. The Sixers may be struggling from a team perspective, but a lot of their players are still racking up the individual stats, and he's one of them. Melton has scored 21 plus fantasy points in both of those contests, his last 2 games, and the usage has been steadily increasing. He's also facing the Raptors, who rank 22nd in fantasy points allowed to guards. So things are really trending in the right direction for him tonight.
All right, let's beef this thing up. A forward over $7,000.
I'll be quick with this one. This is where you need to pay all the way up for Giannis.
Hell yeah.
He's the most expensive player.
Best player on the planet right now, by far.
He absolutely is. He's in a league of his own right now, and he's in a league of his own in terms of price on today's slate at 12.1K. That being said, he's worth every penny. I don't really have to get into what's so appealing about Giannis. He's coming off a 74.5 fantasy point performance. He's seen a usage rate of over 40% in back-to-back games. Don't overthink this one. Roll with the best player on the planet, as Emerson said.
1.94 DraftKings points per minute so far this season. Like, that's jaw-dropping.
It's
absurd. You really think about it. All right, save us some cash there at that position. How about a forward under 5K?
Jalen McDaniels has been on an absolute tear lately, and he just qualifies here, coming in at 4.8K. After averaging just 16.3 minutes per game last year, he's really carved out a larger role in Charlotte's rotation to start this season. 20 plus minutes in all 4 games, and he's racked up 21 plus fantasy points in 3 straight. On top of all those stats that work in his favor, he draws the Magic tonight, who are subpar defensively against wings, to say the least. So ride the hot hand tonight with McDaniels.
Last one here before you get out. Best center. Who are you paying for?
So Giannis technically qualifies as a center. If you want to use him as a center, you can.
True.
He's my favorite stud on tonight's slate. But instead, I'll talk about a value guy. That's going to be Jared Vanderbilt at 5,600. So much of the hype in Utah right now is around Lauri Markkanen and Kelly Olynyk. And by the way, it feels weird to be saying so much of the hype in Utah right now, considering the roster they have. But Vanderbilt,
they're supposed to be losing, right?
I know they're supposed to be losing, but that's not what's happening in Utah right now. That being said, Lauri and Kelly have been doing great, but Jared Vanderbilt has quietly been very productive. He's racked up 32 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. And that type of production is all you can ask for from a rotational center, really. So he's not quite in that value range. He's above 5K, but I still think with Colin Sexton questionable tonight, he could see a bigger role, maybe more usage, especially if Sexton sits.
Okay, Jeff, I'm glad we were able to repair our friendship. We are back, baby. Love you, mean it. Enjoy your weekend. We've got some NHL and DFS picks, NHL DFS picks to hand out, plus bets around college football right after the latest edition of NASCAR Price Check. So I need y'all to pay attention because there are just 2 postseason races left, including this week's Xfinity 500. Pierce Dietrich, take it away.
Welcome to the Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the salaries for Martinsville, whose salary jumped up this week. William Byron, $9,200 up to $10,800. Hendrick is great at Martinsville. Byron won the spring race. He might be the best HMS driver at Martinsville. That's high praise. Kyle Larson, $10,800 up to $11,700. Why is he the most expensive driver this week? This is his worst racetrack. Denny Hamlin, 10,600 up to 11,400. If tire wear was still a thing at Martinsville, then yeah, play Denny Hamlin. But tire wear, not a thing in this racing package at Martinsville, especially when we are expecting some cool temperatures. Whose salary is dropping this week? Tyler Reddick. 10,900 down to 8,400. This is not his track. One top 15 finish in 5 races. His crew chief loves the track, but the crew chief not doing the racing. He's not driving the car. Eric Jones, 7,900 down to 6,700 in the last 2 at Martinsville, both with RPM. He finished 13th and he finished 8th. Kyle Busch, 10,000 down to 8,900. Is his heart in it? Is his head in it? He's switching teams, running an energy drink company, manufacturer, switching the truck series. He's got a couple things going on. Favorite play of the week, Chase Elliott, 11,200. He scored 102 fantasy points in the spring race, and he has delivered clutch performances in previous fall Martinsville races. Ty Gibbs, 6,100. The price does not match the car. The price does not match the driver. He led 197 laps in the Xfinity Spring Martinsville race. All right, guys, check out DK Nation for all your DFS information and needs. If you got NASCAR questions, find me on Twitter at @RaceForThePrize. I'm Pierce Teacher. Catch me on DK Live.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are 6 NHL games on tonight's slate. My guy, RotoWire's Paul Bruno, has scoped out the best fantasy and sportsbook plays he likes, and he's been kind enough to join us and share them with all of you, starting with the best center on the board in DFS on DraftKings. Who's it going to be, Paul?
Well, there's some big prices on some of these guys. I like 2 of them, though, stand out, and I don't think the ownership's going to be high on either one. I like the Hurricanes matchup tonight. They've shown a tendency really to generate a lot of offense on home ice over the last couple of years, and that means good news for Sebastian Aho, who's their number 1 guy in the middle. I'm a little surprised he only cost $6,900 after compiling 9 points in his first 6 games. I also think he's going to take advantage of matchups against Barzal and Brock Nelson, the Isles' 2 top pivots who are not known for their attention to defensive coverage. Aho is going to be poised to take advantage of that for sure. I also like the matchup for Winnipeg and their top center, Mark Scheifele in Arizona. The Jets will be able to swarm the Coyotes with their size, I think, and their skill and physicality should tip the scales even more. Scheifele has 5 goals in his first 7 games and will have no trouble outscaling the Coyotes centers. He'll cost $6,400 in the spot. By the way, Emerson, have you seen the setup for the visiting dressing room? Our local rinks in Toronto are better looking than what they got over there. It's crazy.
Is that right? Okay. Well, you got to hook me up with which winger you are rostering tonight. We also got to keep in mind too, we got 3 teams on back-to-backs of Boston, Vancouver, Winnipeg. So I'm sure that may or may not impact your decision here.
It does. I look at, I think I went a little cheaper at center so I could pay up on the wing tonight. I like Rantanen's matchup for the Devils with his first line minutes and power play exposure for $7,100. Consider that's $1,500 less than his center McKinnon with the same opportunities and high leverage usage. They're only separated by 1 point so far this season. And a year ago, we were talking about Kyle Connor, who was finishing among the top goal scorers in this league. Like a few of his mates and peers, he's off to a bit of a slow start with only 1 goal and 3 helpers in 7 games. We saw Matthews break out with a similar profile last night. I think Connor will do the same tonight. He's averaging over 3 shots on goal a game already. So all he has to do is start putting some of these shots in, and the matchup against Arizona makes that more possible. Plug him in for $6,100. That's as low a price as you're going to see on him for a long time.
Man, Rantanen's due for a goal, dude. Last 3 games, doesn't have a single NHL point, but does have 13 shots on goal. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, first power play unit. Just seems like he's too strong to be playing not up to expectations. Defenseman, take us to the blue line, dude. Who do you like, Paul?
The Pens have had a tough swing through Western Canada. I think AJ's hiding under his sheets today, but they catch Vancouver on the second of back-to-backs tonight, and I think it's a good spot to plug in Chris Letang for only $5,800. I'm finding a lot of big-name guys are discounted with their slow starts this season, but this guy's one of the top scoring defensemen in the league, and he has a great profile that matches up with some of the guys that are about $1,500 more expensive tonight. So grab him if you can. And then finally, Devin Taves has evolved into a prolific scoring partner for Cale Makar. It's not often you see 2 high-scoring defensemen on the same pairing, but these guys are going nuts every night, and yet Taves still only costs $5,400 for his matchup against the Devils. So I hope that he takes advantage of the high leverage minutes with plenty of offensive starts there.
Value play.
Seth Jarvis is in a prime spot at right wing on the Canes top line. We profiled him in our preseason look around the league on my podcast. He's a sidekick to two of their top offensive-minded forwards, yet he still only cost $3,900 for that matchup against the Isles. He's already had a pair of goals in 6 games with this role, so he's going to hang on to it for a while, I think. And another forward with a similar circumstances is Danton Heinen of the Pens, who lines up the veterans Malkin and Carter on the second line for Pittsburgh, which will get the lesser matchup issues than their top line trio in this game too. So that's a good spot for him.
Paul, need your favorite bet here, man, on the DK Sportsbook before you take off.
Well, there's a couple of puck line bets that stand out here. I've spoken a lot about the Pittsburgh matchup in Vancouver already. Don't tell AJ anything about that, please, as it looks like a good spot for the visitors to salvage something from their trip through Canada, particularly as the Canucks played last night. You mentioned the back-to-back scenario. So take the Penguins tonight on the puck line to win by 2 and collect the plus 155 there. I also like Colorado and New Jersey, as you might have guessed by now, plus 170 to win on that puck line too if they win by 2 or more. I think that's going to happen as they have too much talent and they should overwhelm the Devils, quite frankly.
All right, Paul, enjoy your weekend, my friend. Everybody, we got best bets for our college football coming up right after this quick break. We're going to wrap up the show with it. All right, welcome back to the Sweat, everybody. We're wrapping up the show with DK Nation. Chinmay Vaidya here to hand out his best bets around college football. So week 9 already, dude. The slate isn't too exciting. You got ranked matchups featuring Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Ohio State, and Penn State. Buckeyes favored by 14.5 in Happy Valley. Nittany Lions look convincing as Big Ten competitors here, right? Until a couple weeks ago when they met Michigan. What's a bet you like here?
I actually do like Penn State to cover in this game. 14.5 is a lot of points. I would even maybe take a few points against Penn State to get that at plus money. The Nittany Lions would have covered this line in the last 6 contests, I believe, against Ohio State in this rivalry. And we talk about the record that James Franklin is, hasn't won a game against a top 10 team since 2016, I believe. But this is the game for Penn State to close out the season. There's really nothing left after this for them to kind of hang their head on. So I expect them to come out tough. Sean Clifford had some injury issues last week, but looks like he's ready to go. And it's a home game for the Nittany Lions. So I don't know if they'll win this game, but I do think they cover this and make this a close contest.
Well, aside from Ohio State here and Georgia and possibly Tennessee, there's a national fight for that last available slot in the college football playoff, and the Vols can't afford to stumble here against 19th ranked Kentucky. How are you approaching this one on the DK Sportsbook?
Yeah, this is another one, similar to Ohio State and Penn State. This is a rivalry game that's pretty heated for both teams. Kentucky lost in a shootout last year to Tennessee, and I expect the Vols to win again. But I would take, again, Kentucky to cover, double-digit spread. I would still take the Wildcats. They've stumbled a little bit, but they do have the talent. And again, this is a rivalry game that is really big for that school. So I expect them to come out hard. And Tennessee has gotten a little bit of a pass last week after a win over Alabama. They had an easy game last week. So this would be a little bit of a challenge for them, I think. I do like Tennessee to win straight up, but I would take Kentucky against the spread.
All right, let's talk some totals here real quick. I mean, you have, for example, Northwestern and Iowa, 37.5. USC and Arizona is more than double that at 76.5. What is a game total? What is your favorite game total here for this week?
Yeah, I think I would take the under on both of those that you mentioned. 76 is just a ridiculous number, even with USC's offense. And, Northwestern and Iowa, man, I pity the guy who had to set the line for that game, because that is going to be a slow burn for whoever wants to watch that one. I would take the under there. I think I would take the under in Penn State, Ohio State as well. I think that's going to be a close contest, a defensive showdown. That's really the only chance that I think Penn State has if they want to win that game. And then I would take the over on Oregon and Cal. We just saw Oregon hang 45 on UCLA. I think Cal's going to have to keep up, and I think that one should be pretty high scoring.
Chinmay, it's really rare to see unranked stunners this late into the year. But that said, which favorite could be in danger of an upset this week?
So there's favorites like on the odds lines that I would actually say are underdogs on the field. Like Oklahoma State is a money line dog, but they're ranked pretty highly. I would take them over K-State. And anything can happen in these rivalry games. I would say, Ole Miss is susceptible against Texas A&M after we saw the Rebels just completely collapse last week against LSU. And then, Ohio State and Penn State, anything can happen in that game. And Tennessee and Kentucky is another one that I think, bears watching. I wouldn't pick individually any of those favorites to go down, but I think all of those games are spots where you could see a stunner happen.
Slate approved pick time, my dude. What is your favorite bet on the board this Saturday?
Yeah, I've talked about all these big spreads in rivalry games, and I'm going with the primetime one. Michigan and Michigan State. I think I'm taking the Spartans against the number. It's plus 23 right now, and I just think that's way too high. I might even bet it down a little bit. Michigan State plus 21.5 is sitting at plus 100, and I don't know that the Spartans lose by 3 touchdowns, even though they've lost a lot of talent on that team. I would still take them, plus 21.5. They've actually won the last 2 games in this rivalry. So even though Michigan is coming in, the hot team, both teams are coming in after a bye. So this has been the focus for both teams 100%. I think Michigan State at least comes up and shows up in this rivalry and makes it a tough contest.
Yeah, the nerves may kick in there for both teams. So the Wolverines may not end up running up the score after all. Chinmay, your job here is done. My job here is done. Everyone behind the scenes, your job here is done. Go enjoy the weekend. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We're back in studio 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. A lot of NFL talk. See you then.